and welcome to our Tuesday podcast, where Steve and myself discuss sometimes original subjects. So today we're going to be looking at humour and comedy. How do we define what is amusing and funny? What makes us laugh? Yeah. Why do we find some things not so funny? We now have the ability to distribute our own comedy, memes, videos, and Steve and myself do podcasting. Yeah, we could do a comedy podcast, but I'm not sure how many people watch that. Comedy is always going to be subjective. That's what it is. So how do we know comedy? It's like we used to watch comedy, or we have watched comedy on TV. For example, used to watch old Charlie Chaplin films, Harold Lloyd, Laurel and Hardy at times. We used to look at Disney films when we were younger, which was family entertainment, which was Mary Poppins, Herbie. We used to watch the cartoons, which could be, quite violent at times. But Tom and Jerry and Road Runner used to be on telly an awful lot, still are. And yeah, as we grew older, listened to or watched films such as Italian Job and Blazing Saddles, which is totally different. On TV, we begin to have Monty Python and various different other comedy shows in the UK, such as Fawlty Towers, Porridge, Dad's Army, and normally around the Christmas time, they might have their Morecambe and Wise and Two Runnies Christmas specials. And again, they might have a series during the year, which was always funny, never quite lost its appeal. Some standards in there. From the US, certainly they had reruns in the British television of Rowan and Martin's Laughings. And also from the US, very, very dark comedy, which was MASH. It was a very, very downplayed comedy, so it's a bit different. I mean, later on, growing up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, we have Friends, Two and a Half Men, and The Big Bang Theory, which sort of younger people can relate to. Obviously, there was literature. Tom Sharp, Ben Elton, for example, in the UK. Some of this comedy could be offensive. But it was all funny to someone. So my question across to Steve is, what is funny? What defines comedy? And should anything be off limits?
Right, I'm not really the person most indicated to talk about humour and what is funny. You'd have to talk with Jerry Seinfeld for that. He's super passionate about humour, and he's done various interviews and short programs like Comedians in the Car Getting Coffee that sort of delved into the world of humour and what makes comedians tick, and what do we find funny. What you cited there in your intro are vehicles for humour, and not specifically what humour is. What is it that makes us giggle? So whilst you were on about the programs in the 1970s, and you were on about Charlie Chaplin and people like that, it reminded me very much of Shakespeare. You'd have to go back to Shakespeare, where my first recollections of what humour is, which is what's called dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is where the audience can see what the principal person can't.
Yeah.
So we see that sort of thing in the pantomimes. It's behind you. Where? It's there. Where? You see it in the pantomimes, and that there, all the little kid bits of humour that's so old. The people who've got a lesser threshold on humour, like the kids,
Mm.
The small kids, they're in stitches, laughing around, laughing. It's
Yeah.
funny being. You mentioned slapstick.
Mm.
That there is once again, it's dramatic irony.
Mm.
However, because that a typical example is watching somebody walk into a lamppost.
Yeah.
Right, you're on the other side of the street. You can see it happening, and then they walk into and then they bump their head on a lamppost.
Yes.
That's what slapstick is basically. Only in slapstick, nobody actually really gets hurt.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you've got the guy with the plank on his shoulder or the
Mm.
ladders, and he
Yes.
spins around. He can't see his mate, and his mate can't see him, and his mate
Yeah.
gets hit. That's
Yeah.
what makes it funny. That
Mm.
impact.
Mm.
He got hurt, and that's what makes that part funny. It's a little bit like the old lady slipping on a banana skin.
Mm.
They say that it's not funny if a woman slips on banana skin. It's only funny if it's an old lady. If it's an old one
Mm. Yeah.
because there's more pain. But of
Yeah.
course, none of us want for a little old lady to slip on a banana skin.
Yes.
So we come to violence,
Mm.
violent things. We see this is played out very much very
Mm.
well in the Three Stooges.
Mm.
If you see the Three Stooges, the guy, the main man in the Three Stooges, he'll slap the other two across the face,
Yeah.
and you hear tack tack, and everybody laughs at that
Mm.
because it's a really violent act
Mm.
where he's hitting his friends, but
Yes.
it's funny to watch. It's funny to watch mainly because it isn't you,
Mm.
if that makes sense to you.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it
Yes.
it
Funny to
isn't
watch somebody
it
else
isn't
suffer.
it's,
Yeah.
it isn't you getting slapped, right?
Yeah.
You know, and we get the mishaps. I mentioned the walking into a lamppost,
Mm.
standing on a rake is another one.
Yeah.
It's a classic, although it hardly ever happens.
Mm.
Or walking and falling down a manhole cover.
Mm.
It's bad news for whoever the
Yes.
joke's on, right?
Yes.
We talk about the unexpected
Mm.
when you talk about humor. I'm trying to think of a good example of the unexpected. Well, the comedians.
Mm.
There was a program in the telly on the British telly called The Comedians, and there were
Yeah.
just loads of stand-up
Mm.
comedians telling the jokes. Which these days, if you listen to it, you know what the punchline is going to be.
Yes.
But the object is to give that punchline that nobody expects.
Mm.
And that's what makes it funny.
Yes.
It's you're expecting one thing,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, boom, something else happens.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the laugh is almost like a release of tension, if you like.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you say something that nobody expected you to say, that can be
Mm.
deemed as funny, even if
Yeah.
it's insulting.
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
get a small if you get a small kid that all of a sudden swears,
Mm.
and you didn't expect that young kid to know that swear word.
Yeah.
Before you slap them, you'll laugh
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because the two things just don't don't um don't get
Wouldn't be
into
going. Yeah.
don't belong to each other,
Yes.
And that little thing, that the unexpected, that there is another aspect of humor of why we
Mm.
laugh. It's the unexpected.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
You've got of course the suggestive comedy,
mm.
which Benny Hill, I suppose,
Oh yeah.
was a was the one who did that. Watching the ladies at the end of the program, they didn't have that music where everybody chases
Yeah.
each other around.
Yes.
That's the suggestive humor.
Yeah.
Uh, Mostly sexualized, of course. It has to be.
Yeah.
It's to make your audience think one pace ahead of you
Mm.
of what's going to happen, and
Yeah.
it's got to be something that at the last minute you can, if you pardon the pun, pull out of
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
leave your audience high and dry, because
Yeah.
it's too late. They've already thought of that,
Mm.
right? And of course, when you use your last second of pulling out of that train
Yeah.
of thought,
Yeah.
you leave them there, and that there is what makes them laugh as well.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah. The switch and bait. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you say, switch and bait.
that's
You're going
right.
to
You've
go
got to
this way. And
lead them on,
yeah.
suggesting something,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you go whoop, and
Yeah.
you leave them there, high and dry.
Yes.
We have, of course, uh, the puns,
Mm-hmm.
where you say one word and it means another.
No, yeah. Something ponderous and
Uh,
etc. Yeah.
Dad jokes, what are commonly called these days, modernly called these days, dad jokes,
Yeah.
are, are full of puns,
Yes.
and so once again, it's that when you think it means one thing
Yeah.
and the way they say it's something else, it's that element of surprise and
Yeah.
realization. Once again, it's a release of tension. It's a
Yeah.
release of tension, I suppose, that makes us laugh.
Yes.
That makes us laugh. Um, and of course, you've got ridiculing
Mm.
people.
Yeah.
It's observation,
Mm.
ridiculization.
Yes.
So it can be of people or it can be of situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which Jerry Seinfeld, he was a master of that
Mm.
on his program of the Seinfeld on
Yeah.
Seinfeld.
Yeah. Go
You
back
know
a bit. Yeah.
that I know that the show was about nothing,
Yes.
but they put together a series of events
Mm.
which people do in society without thinking, and
Yeah.
they make it so that they're ridiculing that event. Even just talking in a coffee shop.
Yes.
What they're talking about. People unfortunately do talk about crap like that. You know,
Yeah.
and it's only when somebody sees themselves
Mm.
that they realize, you know, it could even be an embarrassing laugh, an embarrassed laugh. You
Yeah. I
know,
mean, yeah, I'm reminded you're saying that, seeing yourself. There was a TV series, The Original Office, actually came from the UK, not the
that's right.
US.
That's right.
And yeah, the most irritating thing was not that the characters were irritating or funny and all that. You could watch it, and anyone that's worked in an office could see other people, and more frightening, see yourself.
So,
And that was I think that was the clever part of it. Real observation comedy. And you would
yeah.
be sitting there cringing and cringing even more. Think, that's me. That's me. Do I look like that? So as if you like, it was making you feel insecure as you're
Well,
watching it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it isn't you now,
Yeah.
it makes you think about the things you did when you were younger
Yeah.
that
Ooh.
were absolutely ridiculous, and they don't even need to be within the environment of an
No.
office.
No.
You just think about what the stupid things you used to get up to when you were a lot younger.
Yeah. But
I mean, these days I don't have the energy to do the stupid things. Otherwise, I suppose I still would be doing them. But
well,
you know, trying to impress people and
yeah.
all this sort of stepping on people's toes,
Yeah.
not physically, but I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
metaphorically.
Prove yourself
Try,
that, as you
trying
said,
to
we're
get to the
hunters.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying to get to the top and all that. And so, that part's there, the observation and ridicule in society.
Yeah.
Um, Intellectual humor,
Mm.
and now we're coming to the Monty Python people.
Yeah.
Um, Difficult to understand,
Yeah.
and even now, I can't get to grips with everything that they did. I just some things to me, um, I don't know if I was missing out on something. I really don't know. But I mean, my mates at school, they'd be laughing
Mm,
their heads off, and
yeah.
I just couldn't find what they were laughing at. It just didn't make sense to me. But
Ah,
perhaps that's what the humor is. That it
I
doesn't. Why should it make sense? It doesn't need to.
exactly.
You know.
Yeah, yeah. It was people who had a weird thing, like the Dead Parrot sketch, for example, that you might remember. I'm not
Yes,
going to
of
go
course. It's a classic.
dissect it. That actually started off as a broken toaster. If you actually read the folklore, and if somebody said,
Right.
"Oh, well, funny if it's a dead parrot," um, and yeah, the way they're developed and all that, yeah, their minds work very, very differently. Not everything they did worked. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think just sticking on this dead parrot sketch a touch.
Yeah,
You have to slim it down even further.
yeah,
Basically, it's a story of a guy who's taken
yeah,
a product back to the shop
yeah,
because it's faulty, and the
mm,
store owner doesn't want to give him a refund. He'll justify anything and everything so that he doesn't have to give him a refund.
yeah,
And that basically is what the Dead
yeah,
Parrot sketch is.
exactly.
It's
That's
just
it.
that they'll decorate it with words.
Mm,
They'll decorate it with absurd justifications,
yeah,
you know, of why the pallet's still alive and why it's not dead,
yeah,
you know. And so that I understood.
yeah.
That I understood, even though to me it was a long-winded way of finding the humor. I think they explored that far too much.
Well,
And
that was
because, sorry, go on.
yeah. Well, that was all part of it. We all knew that. Well, this is just ridiculous when you listen to it and everything else. But it was funny the way that they, as you said, they used the words. It was never meant to be a quick one-liner punch line.
But
And
I
they,
think I think it should have been, and that's what I
yeah, but,
they drew out the punchline for far too long, in my opinion.
yeah,
Before they transitioned onto the lumberjack song.
yeah. Well, that's funny. I mean, again,
But
that was funny. But yeah, I mean, also they had the four Yorkshiremen sitting around talking, which we all
yep,
knew exactly what they were doing. Almost a series of cliches, and like you're saying, getting the one better on each other by
yep,
saying how
that's
bad their
that's
life was.
that's basically what it is. It's four old blokes,
Yeah,
one-upmanship, trying to get
yeah,
one-upmanship. And that is the joke. That is the
yeah,
joke of society, that there
yeah,
are people around who try and get one-upmanship.
mm,
It's a little bit like a little bit like The Office.
yeah,
That the scenes, they are scenes that
mm,
a little bit like Seinfeld, if you like.
yes,
There are scenes where even though the characters are exaggerated,
yes,
you know, but they're just making a statement about society.
yeah,
That I understood.
yeah,
But I don't understand some. I mean, the best film that Python made, in my view, was The Life of Brian, but only because it was more commercial
mm,
and it was easier to understand the humor. But that
yeah,
I digress on that because we were talking about what is humor.
yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, the
Okay,
difference is here, but yeah, I mean,
we were
yeah, I
talking about.
mean, yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
go on, go on.
Yeah, I mean, this is the differences, and yeah, I mean, the should anything be off limits with humour?
Right, so brings me back onto the next
Yeah,
subject. Uh, I don't know if we touched on about Alf Garnett, and you know,
yeah,
saying things that perhaps this day and age they won't be allowed to be said on the telly.
mm,
In them days, Alf Garnett, he was saying what a lot of people were frightened to say
mm,
of the work from the working class.
right, yeah,
He was saying a lot of what the working class thought, but
yes,
wouldn't say in public, and that's what made Alf Garnett funny in that aspect. It's almost like laughing in an embarrassed way
yes,
because of shock of what he's saying.
mm,
Of, and that's what that humor. It grew along with other Dame Edna Everage.
Yeah.
Barry Humphries, he was a great comedian, saying things, saying the
Yeah.
what's called fashionably now, saying the quiet part out loud.
Yes.
When he's been interviewed, he'd ridicule the
yeah.
he'd ridicule the host in
Oh, yeah.
in some manner,
Yeah.
which a lot of people are wanting to say, but no, don't.
Yeah.
And Dame Edna, she, if you like, said Barry Humphries could say that because he wasn't being Barry Humphries. He was being this character, Dame Edna, who could.
Yeah.
Right? If he had a straight interview
Mm.
with an interviewer, he
Yeah.
wouldn't say, that they're stupid, or they
No.
wouldn't know what a good lifestyle was and things like this.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's so saying things that other people wouldn't say out loud
Mm.
is but basically where we got to until, and I'm going to say this,
Mm.
until the woke people came around
Yeah.
and started to scream and shout, saying that, I mean, you could argue that it's unnecessary.
Mm.
I really don't know if it makes me laugh.
That's it.
If somebody makes me, I go to watch a comedy show to have a laugh.
Yeah.
If somebody can make me laugh, well, I've not wasted my money on a ticket.
Mm.
However, what the comedy clubs are trying to push now are
Yeah.
lectures
Mm.
on how to be. So you got people who are of an ethnic minority, and they will tell people, don't be embarrassed to laugh because I'm black, or
Mm.
you're only laughing because I'm black, or I'm the quota
Yeah.
for this comedy club. Which to me, it's something you could argue that it's something that everybody wants to say out loud but don't. But I think they go too far.
Yeah. I mean, um, okay, I'm going to talk about this woke and comedy. I mean, yeah, I heard some jokes when I was young, which, okay, I can see they're inappropriate then.
Yeah,
People have got to understand context, and this is what we're not doing. It's critical thinking, in effect. If you tell a joke, sometimes I joke about your age. That could be offensive because you're only 10 years older than me, in effect. And I'm going to be your age one day, God willing, sort of thing. Hopefully much better looking still, but yeah. But again, offensive joke.
if you continue on that line, you won't be.
There you go. See, aggression. Oh yeah, grab my
No, but
belt.
it's something that nobody's expected me to say.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's context, and that's what people don't always understand. Yeah, and if I was to apologise to you, and you could say, "But you don't mean that," exactly. I don't mean everything I say. You're quite correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, okay. It's a you got to be careful what you say. Never go out to offend anyone. But again, it's in context. Can I tell a joke about a black person? Depends what the joke is. I'm not going to infer somebody is inferior because of their ethnicity. That's wrong. Well, in normal situations, that's wrong. It would depend on what the joke is or what the context is. And this is what people don't always realise. I can joke about anything I want. You can choose not to listen to me. If I was a comedian and said this and that, if people chose not to listen to me, I'd soon be hungry. If on the other hand, yeah, people enjoy it, they take it for what it is. That doesn't mean you got a license, you got freedom of speech. It doesn't mean you got a license to go out there and say absolutely anything and everything. You've got a responsibility as a person of the world to understand people do have feelings, but why should I be infringed? Because you get offended, because 2 people get offended and 2 million don't get offended, for example, why should I not say something? If you choose to be offended, you can turn me off telly or you can not watch something. or yeah, am I going to attack you? No, I'm not. You know, you can ignore me, which is pretty much what I try and do in life when people are obnoxious. But it's again, people have got to understand it. The original idea of woke, and I kind of go with this, was awakening, was to make people aware that maybe we're in a transition from an old world where older world values were not right, but we gave up on a lot of things many, many years ago. It's very strange that some comedy from the 1970s is now banned, although it was supporting the very essence of what these people are trying to achieve.
Because I think the people are concentrating on the wrong thing.
Mm.
So what you were talking about, telling a racist joke.
Mm.
The ethnicity of a person is the object in the joke.
Yeah.
But it is not what the joke is about.
Mm.
Right? So we could talk about a Chinese guy who says something, and then what he's actually saying, it means something else.
Yeah.
Right? That is not racist about Chinese guy. It just means that he says something that sounds something like it's a pun.
Yeah.
That perhaps he's something that was very punny, if you pardon the expression.
Yeah.
Right? If you have the Life of Brian, for example, and Caesar says, the Herod, I think it was.
Yeah.
His guard was saying, that Caesar wank-sized in Rome because he had a short tongue.
Yeah.
That isn't ridiculing.
Yeah.
That isn't ridiculing Romans.
No.
That's ridiculing the way that the bloke spoke.
Yes. Exactly.
You could argue that you shouldn't criticize people who have got a short tongue. But when you listen to what they say, which is where the humor comes in.
Yeah.
People in everyday life have said something that we've misinterpreted, and we thought it was funny because of that.
Yeah.
And they meant to say something else, but we misinterpreted it. Independent race, color, creed, age. We just didn't hear it right, or they tried to say something and they couldn't. They didn't say it. They didn't say it correctly. I mean, you're an English teacher. You've heard Brazilians try and speak English, some of them, and they might pronounce a word that's. I was in fits when I heard a French girl try and say the name Piccadilly in London.
Yeah.
She put the stress in the wrong place of the word of Piccadilly, and I just didn't know what she said, and I had to ask her 2 or 3, 4 times, and eventually it fell into place. I said, Piccadilly, and I started to laugh. But
yeah, I mean, I joked about myself about some of my pronunciations for Portuguese places and then words.
I'm the same.
I've had I've had students scared to laugh when I've tried to say it, and I'm sorry, teacher, don't worry about it. It just shows I've got empathy with you, not being able to pronounce something, and even I think it's funny. And I've heard I've heard a recording of me speaking Portuguese and sort of cringed, and how bad my Portuguese is. But sometimes, it's it's a growth thing. But to laugh at it, but then they remember how to say it, because that will impart a memory in them. And this is it. I mean, the idea, of not insulting anyone, again, is context, and that's what people know. Someone I know in the UK had to go on a half-day course all about behaviour in the workplace. Didn't do anything wrong. It was a standard course. Everyone had to do it. And this person was actually told, if you hear a funny joke in the office, it's better not to laugh in case somebody finds it offensive. And this person said, well, in which case, I'm in trouble already. If I find something funny, I will laugh.
Yeah, of course.
And again, and I'm going to be honest, we're talking about these people, and it's being used by people Humour is probably the ultimate freedom we have to express ourselves.
Yeah.
And it was used in many...
Not always, but I'll explain to you in a second.
Yeah. But again, you could, in the 1950s and 1960s, humour was used when a certain sexual activity was illegal in England, but it was coming through in some comedies. In the US as well. I don't know the US, but yeah, certainly in the UK. And we were laughing at it. Everyone knew what it meant. The people in authority didn't, or if they did, they ignored it because it wasn't obvious. It was subtle. Again, it was highly hilarious. So again, yeah, it's used to beat down systems. Humour is a good way of coping and beating down and sticking up to oppression. If you can, as you said, if you can laugh at somebody, it's funny if they don't always realise it.
I think you'll find that's why a lot of the old humour came from the north of England, because their life was more difficult, and it still is more difficult. And people, if they didn't have humour to talk about things, then they'd be as miserable as sin. But I wanted to talk about just quickly about when you transition. We were talking about pronouncing foreign words.
Yeah.
Well, telling a joke in Portuguese is a lot different than telling a joke in English.
Yeah.
Simply because the adjective comes after, in Portuguese, the adjective comes after the subject. Yeah. So you can't, whereas you call somebody, you describe somebody, and then you have that final word in an English joke.
Yeah.
It's that last word that makes the joke funny. You can't do that. You can't do that in Portuguese because you've got to deliver that line before all the adjectives. And I found that out very quickly here in Brazil, thinking that I was funny.
Yeah.
I was giving them the funny word, what was supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Badly pronounced.
Yeah.
But before the adjectives, and the people were just lost when I told them the joke. There are some jokes, visual humor, of course, slapstick, of course, dramatic irony, these sort of things. They travel. Some jokes do, where you don't need to have this description and then the last word to give the final. But I mean, I remember a joke in the UK about the bloke who goes to the circus.
Yeah.
And the clown says to him, he says, "Oh, sir," he says, "are you the front end of an ass?" He said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Are you the back end of an ass?" He says, "No, I'm not." He said, "In that case," he turns around to the crowd and says, "Well, in that case, you must be no end of an ass." Right? And all the crowd laughed.
Yeah.
So this bloke, he spent 5 years dedicating himself to the art of repartee.
Yeah.
The art of responding,
Yeah.
Spent a fortune in this course. And he waited for the circus to come round again. He went to the circus, and the same clown was there, same clown. Yeah. And he said, and by coincidence, he picked on the same guy.
Yeah.
He said, "Sir, are you the front end of an ass?" He said, "No, I'm not." He said, "No." "Are you the back end of an ass?" No, I'm not. "In that case," the clown says, "you must be no end of an ass." And the crowd laughed. And to which the bloke replied, "You red-nosed bastard." That there, you can't tell that joke here because, first of all, there's not an equivalent swear word.
Yeah,
it's several words, and you'd have to put the last word before the description of his red nose.
Yeah,
and it loses all that impetus.
Yeah.
Sorry about the swearing, but we are on a podcast after all.
Yeah,
right?
I don't care about it. Yeah.
The only humor that I don't like, I can appreciate, but I just don't like, is vulgar humor, especially performed by women. Call me old fashioned, but I just not. bodily functions of women told by women
Yeah,
doesn't really doesn't. I can understand what they're trying to get at,
yeah.
but it's not something that makes me laugh out loud, as they say on the internet these days.
No, I agree. I mean, it's not something us guys can relate to, and possibly